The following material is presented for informational and sales purposes only and represents our understanding of generally applicable rules. It is not intended and does not set forth solutions to individual situations. New York Life Insurance Company, its agents, or employees may not give legal, tax, or accounting advice, and none is intended nor should be inferred from the information herein. Clients should consult their own professional advisors prior to implementing any planning strategies. This material includes a discussion of one or more tax-related topics prepared to assist in the promotion or marketing of the transactions or matters addressed. It is not intended and cannot be used by any taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding any IRS penalties that may be imposed upon the taxpayer.
You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk, AM 1150. Now, back to the show with local mortgage and finance expert, Tina Mitchell.
Welcome back to The Money Hour with your host and mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell, right here on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, February 3rd show, bringing in expert advice and inside knowledge on today's events in our local economy and how it can affect your money. If you're hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. You can call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150 or online at themoneyhour.com to discuss anything with my guests that I have in studio or with myself, your host. And right now in studio, I have Tony Sablan with New York Life Wealth Management, and we're talking about Blueprint for 2018 success. Tony, thank you so much for coming back in studio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Thanks. And so it's another year, Tony, more goals to be had. This is the best time to plan your year if you haven't done so already. So what are you sharing with my listeners today?
Well, as I always start with in the beginning of the year is just some ideas to kickstart your financial blueprint for success. And if you haven't had your financial plan reviewed or you haven't created it, today is the best day to start. Building a strong financial future is very much like building a house. You start from the ground up. You lay your blueprint out. Then you lay a solid foundation. After you lay the foundation, you begin building your walls around your financial house. And waiting till the end of the year will just add another year of procrastination. So get your plan done now so that you can build upon it year by year and focus on the more important things like spending time with your family, improving at work, and figuring out ways to earn more money so you can retire early. A couple hours of your time now to secure your financial future is nothing compared to the hours you spend in traffic or dealing with day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, great advice. And, it's so important you have to have that blueprint before you put down the foundation, because that could be an absolute disaster. And so when it comes with your financial planning, really having that solid blueprint in line is going to be an important part of that strategy. So, Tony, what is the first thing that you must do to get your financial planning in order?
Well, first you have to figure out what your goals are for the short term, mid-term, and long term. Mm-hmm. And this helps you frame the things that you'd set in your financial plan. So determine what excites you about life, what excites you about your work, what do you want to accomplish this year, because ultimately these goals are tied to money and your job, and also your personal and professional life. So once you figure those things out, then you can start to begin to put the financial tools in place.
Yeah, and if I would say, would you ever work for a company, an employer that's not going to give you a raise? And of course, the answer would be no. So when you're setting up your plan, Tony, you're saying the beginning and in the middle and at the end of the plan, you want to make sure that you're going to be receiving those increases, just like you would want to continue at employment, to make sure that you're going to be able to sustain your lifestyle moving forward. So now that you have your goals, what is the next step for the blueprint?
So the next step is figuring out, what's your cash flow like and what are your expenses. So to determine that, a good way to do it is just to add up all the monthly expenses that you spend on, and then figuring out what your net income is. And then from there, you just subtract your expenses from your net income, and that would be the cash flow you have to save money, and start to think about what you want to allocate to your short-term savings goals, mid-term savings goals, and long-term savings goals.
Love that. And as I see on the mortgage side, when trying to come up with a budget of what you can afford with a mortgage, if you are not happy with that result of what that's going to get you in a home or in a financial situation, if you're not happy with the result of what that money is going to earn you within a period of time, it's time to kind of take a step back and take a look at where that budgeting's at. Because really, if you look at not buying, the Starbucks coffee, or maybe going out to dinner once a month instead of twice a month, that impact can have a huge impact when you actually run the numbers. So, and that's what's really great about having your financial advisor that can kind of lay things out and adjust the numbers and let you see what that's going to do for your future. So a very important part of the process. I agree, Tony. So what is something that is often overlooked in the financial planning blueprint?
What's often missed is risk management. So how are you protecting your income, the income you're earning, and the assets that you're building for your family? And usually that involves some sort of income protection strategy, emergency savings fund, and life insurance. So that's usually what gets missed in a financial plan. It's easy to focus on the exciting things such as your 401k. These days it's Bitcoin investing, and more just stocks, individual stocks. And nobody likes to talk about the defensive side, and what wins championships is defense. So why wouldn't you do that for your own money?
I love that. And, imagine the security and safety in life. If you've got your life insurance and everything set up, I mean, who does not want to have a safety and secure safety net for their family if something were going to happen? And there's a lot of those opportunities in the life insurance side of it that can actually work in the investment side as well. So really getting together and knowing what all those options are for you is critically important. So Tony, what do you say to someone who is really far from retirement?
So for those that retirement is in the distant future, I say to them, retirement will creep up on you before you know it. Time flies. We're already at the end of January. So therefore, take advantage of the fact that you won't need that much to save today for retirement, since it will be much less than if you would ask myself or another advisor for a strategy to start saving later. So life happens real fast, and with inflation and all, and if you're starting single, then you have a family, then you have grandkids, and then at that point you're ready to save. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So take advantage of today. Today is going to be the cheapest it is to save for your goals.
Always going to be cheaper than tomorrow, that's for sure. And I will say, I'm going to be a half a century old this year. 50 years old, can you believe it? I look pretty young, right, Tony?
Oh, you look very young.
Okay, good, thank you. Because the listeners can't see me, so give me a
never
sub up
guessed.
there. So I would say to those of you that are younger and you think retirement's so far away, it's really a blessing, and you will regret by not taking advantage of it now when you do get into those older years. Like Tony said, what you can put away now and what an impact that's going to have versus what it's going to be if you wait. So Tony, what do you say to someone who is nearing retirement? Maybe a little more on my side.
So for those nearing retirement, they should take the time to ask themselves how they will cover expenses for an extended care event. That's a very real thing these days. You see a lot of GoFundMe campaigns online. When somebody gets hurt or sick and can't work the rest of their career. So the rub on long-term care is that it's expensive, but you still need to have that conversation because there's a lot of options out there, depending on the amount of money you have. And the other thing to note is to take a look at your current IRA or 401k investments and see how you're allocated relative to the time frame that you have for retirement coming up on you. And also look at how's that in relation to where the market cycle is today, because the ups and downs come, and you don't want all your assets exposed in higher risk categories when we're at the tail end of the hottest market that the U.S. has seen in a while. So, and then also consult with your CPA to determine how tax diversified you are in your retirement plan. What assets are going to be tax free, and then what assets are going to be taxable once you start drawing that money.
Yeah, and you really have a great advisor, and if you don't have one, I have one right here in studio right now. It's a team. So I like how you said your CPA, because you've got your CPA, your estate planner, and your financial planner that really is coming together to put that solid plan together to make sure that you have all of those areas covered. So, Tony, what are some misconceptions about retirement planning?
Some misconceptions include I don't need as much money in retirement. The reality is the house may be paid off, but then that money just shifts to other types of spending, mainly healthcare.
I was going to say healthcare.
Taking care of the grandkids, visiting the grandkids in other states. So the money just shifts.
Yeah.
It doesn't really go away.
That's so sad, Tony.
And then Medicare will be enough to pay for their healthcare expenses. That's not the case. And moving to a retiree-friendly state will save you money. Generally, that is not the case, since having zero income taxes often translates into higher taxes elsewhere, such as property or sales taxes.
Yeah. So, Tony, if you could say one thing when you're meeting with clients and you wish that you had met them earlier so that you could have counseled and coached them on what to do that they've missed, what would that be?
And it always comes down to, I wish I would have saved more when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I wish I wouldn't have bought the bigger house. I know we were talking about
well, where are you going to live in Seattle
earlier.
here, Yeah.
And
not that $14 million, $17 million home.
Right.
Okay. Rosemary's over here cracking up.
And then I wish I would have bought more. I wish I would have bought more permanent insurance when I was younger.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot, and because they realize that they're living longer, and now they have grandkids, they still want to pass the legacy on to, and it forces them. If you had some sort of permanent insurance, you can actually spend all the money that you've saved, because you can have the insurance company just pay what you would normally saved.
Sure,
right?
Sure. So, is it ever too late to start planning?
I believe that it's never too late to start planning or thinking about your goals or doing something. You just got to start now. So the best time is now. So take the time to plan, and you won't regret it.
Yeah, never too late to start planning, but it might be too late to get the plan that you were hoping for if you don't take action today versus tomorrow. So really, if taking anything out of my conversation with Tony today is really just to act and not procrastinate, because it's going to make a difference in the future that you're going to have for yourself and for your family. So, Tony, as we're wrapping up some time here, you shared a lot today. Could you just give a recap on the financial blueprint?
So first, I like to think of things in threes. So first, come up with at least 3 goals for this year.
Okay.
And what you want to accomplish, whether that's personal or professional. Then ask yourself, do you want to be a spender first, saver last, or a saver first and spender last? Your financial freedom comes with being a saver first. So know where you stand today financially by figuring out your cash flow and your net expenses. And have a risk management plan in place so that you can sleep easy at night, knowing that, God forbid anything happened to you, your income's still coming in and your investments are protected. And then just take advantage of all the tools available to you to save for retirement, regardless of what those tools are, because they each serve a different purpose, and they wouldn't be around if they weren't going to do good for you. And lastly, focus on your plan and ignore the noise of the media, blogs, your neighbor, and get the information that's relevant to you, because your friends or your neighbors don't know your life's aspirations other than you. So.
Yeah, and again, Tony, just great advice. And outside influence, you've got to be really careful of that. You really need to sit down and meet with the experts in all areas of your finances to make sure you're getting the right advice, and not to say that they're not looking out for your best interest, but that is not their expertise. And like you said, they don't know your personal, individually, what's happening behind the scenes. So, Tony, thank you again for coming in and sharing with my listeners. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Tina. Always a pleasure.
And coming up next on The Money are Morgan Oakes with 7 Oaks, creating the maximum impact, keys to clarity, courageous living, and inspired action. Right here at 1150 AM KKNW after this short break.